Who belongs on a dollar bill?
Nicki Minaj.
Post Malone.
Ellen DeGeneres.
What is happening?
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, let's not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
You guys are both wrong. I'm just gonna.
I mean,
I was gonna say Abraham Lincoln, but then I was like, I don't want to go the president route. So then Amber saved me. And
Abraham Lincoln was already on a $5 bill.
yeah,
is
no.
he? He is?
You don't know this?
I don't know who's on the dollar bill.
It's on the cent and the $5
Oh, damn, I
bill.
should have
Yeah.
said like Harriet Tubman, because weren't they trying to make that a thing?
Yeah, a black person
Yeah.
would be cool on one
Yeah.
of the on one of those.
Obama.
That was supposed to be like a thing at
That
one
was
point.
that was a good question. But yeah, Amber saved me with because I was gonna say
No,
Abraham
I
Lincoln.
think I would rather go with Nicki Minaj and Post Malone. That's a dirty bill.
he looks like a dollar
You
bill
want-
like on his face.
Okay, well, since you guys don't have legitimate reasons,
Excuse me, my reason is legitimate.
she is not a significant enough person, period.
Do you know how bad I would feel spending that dollar with Nicki on it? Oof.
You would just collect them. Like she would just not spend that.
Collectibles. I think it would be awesome to have. Well, I there's probably a lot of people that would be like Ellen. There's so many more women, and
What
now
about
that I'm
Michelle
thinking about
Obama?
it,
Yeah.
not even Michelle.
Oh
like,
my
it
God,
could go
Michelle
back.
Obama
Like
would
she
be
said,
such a
Harriet
good
Tubman
one,
would be
too.
awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women that I feel like would be really good. That's just the first thing that came to my mind. But like, I do think that
Oprah.
Ellen is a great
Queen
role model.
Latifah.
I feel like
Chicken nuggets. Sorry, went too far.
Amber ruins everything.
So sorry.
I'm not even gonna explain anything.
No,
okay?
I want to hear it. Why do you think Ellen? I mean, we've heard many times on the podcast that you love Ellen, not necessarily the show.
Role model purposes.
Okay.
That's it.
Sick. All right, thank you guys.
Also, like,
Oh,
it would be LGBT approved, so nice.
yeah.
LGBT approved. Well, I don't. That's not why I said it, but okay.
I know, but it would make a lot of people
Yeah.
feel good.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning into an episode of Strange Flavors. My name is Shimmer.
For us.
My name is Amber.
And this is brought to you by Olive Theory. You can find us on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can listen to us everywhere where you listen to podcasts.
Wow.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and the visual aspect on this.
Look at
YouTube.
you.
Going off.
Dude,
over
I'm
it.
on a cup of coffee. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great.
We
And
gotta
it's a great, nice Sunday morning. So,
Whoa.
yes. And if
Go
you
off.
want to send in your cool questions, cool music,
Questions.
you just want to talk to us, you can just do that on our email on strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com.
We love talking to you guys.
Love it.
I just realized I'd be spending some gay bills.
Okay, what?
I thought you were going to talk about the merch or something. Like,
Well, I just,
Literally anything.
like, yo, that's a gay dollar right there.
yeah.
All right.
That's a gay $20 that you just gave
Such
me.
a happy $20 bill.
Do you think people would not accept it?
Yes.
Like, they'd be like, I don't
They'd be like,
accept
I
that.
refuse to accept dollar bills.
No, like, they'd be like, oh, that's a gay dollar bill. Like, people that are offended by that.
Yes. I think people would be paying in like, here's 100 cents. I'm not using that dollar. Like, I don't keep that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the ones who want it get to keep it. Mwahaha.
That's a good way of being like, if you're offended by like our founding fathers or something, and you're like, these guys were racist, they had slaves, be like, listen, I'm gonna take this because I don't believe in spending the money because these people were,
I don't know where you're going with that. Sorry, I tried.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, how you're saying like people wouldn't be spending that gay bill. Like if we could also be like, with the white men that are on these dollar bills,
Right.
like I don't believe in like what they did. to
Okay, but
this
then we wouldn't be able to take the money, and I want/need money.
I know, but you wouldn't have to spend the money. You could be like, I don't believe in spending money because it has these
Don't
faces
we have
on
like
there.
merch that we sell?
If you want to get our merch, olivetheory.com/shop. We still have cool shirts like the one Shamir is wearing, which have great messages on them.
It's
If you want to get
beautiful.
Ronopono Strange Flavors merch, that is also on there through Redbubble. You can get all things like phone cases, socks, shirts, sweatshirts, pillows, and everything, stickers, posters of us.
Coasters?
Posters.
Posters and coasters.
He's been using this voice since the beginning. That's great. He's like, yes, an advertisement, posters and coasters. Yeah. Well, where do we begin? Let's
a
talk
few
about
topics.
first, huh?
Quite a few topics.
Let's talk about first of all, Amber. You're not gonna be here next week, starting.
Yes.
because you're gonna be where?
In Hawaii, Maui.
Dang, no invite?
So like, I kind of wanted to go with people that I like enjoy spending time. No, I'm totally kidding.
Damn.
No, I'm going for a fitness retreat. I'm going with people I've honestly never met. So
Oh, they're not from like your gym.
no.
Oh.
These are people like it's like an online fitness community.
It's like Love Island.
It's like
Love Island.
the person who put it together. Her name's Danielle Gray, and she's kind of like a life coach / gymnast. She has a company called Train Like a Gymnast, and she put this retreat together. So a bunch of fitness enthusiasts are going.
I saw your profile, and something that you want to learn is how to do flips.
That'd
So
be
I can
cool.
do cartwheels and stuff, but like I want to learn how to do a backflip.
So is
I
that
wanna learn
like
that too.
you go there and like by the end of the retreat, like you're gonna be able to do these things?
She assists you so that you should hopefully be able to. Because every
Because
day
if
we
I
have
went all the way to Hawaii and I still can't do a backflip, I'd be like, what the heck?
right. So she's a gymnast and she teaches gymnastics as well. So we're like, there's a chunk of the day dedicated every day to tumbling, where we just go out on the beach in front of our house there, and we just practice doing flips and.
If
tumbling.
you learn it, I'll learn it too.
Nice.
Because
Like from her?
no, not from her.
Like in general?
YouTube tutorials and stuff.
True.
Yeah,
True.
that was a goal of mine. Like I think 2 years ago, I made a tweet about it, and
That you want to
first-
know how to do a backflip?
Yeah, like so I can do it on stage, and then
Oh my God, we could be backflipping like across the stage
Yeah.
together.
What if you like knock yourself out?
that's
Like,
literally
on stage.
That's literally what you tweeted when I
Oh, I
wrote
did?
that. Yeah.
Yo.
Like you're about to take an L.
I
on
like
stage.
myself from back then. I agree with him. Well, you've been going through these back pains for some time, so like, are you ready to do all that? Like, is that gonna be okay doing these flips and all that?
I mean, so yeah, I've been dealing with back pain for the last 6 months, and if you watch the YouTube videos, you'll see me either like
There has been tears.
there's been many tears over this, but like you'll see me kind of like stretching out and this and that. But you know, I basically was very worried that I wouldn't be able to, because they did have a lot of extraction. We're going like snorkeling and ziplining and like, you know, even I wanted to go skiing with you guys this season, and I asked my physical therapist, and she was like, no, like not yet, and this and that. So the last it's been happening for 7 months, but for the last 3 months it's been like just like getting progressively worse. And I was so bummed out because I've spent so much money into this Hawaii trip. Like I've never spent so much money on a trip in my life.
And you've spent a lot of time just in this like fitness zone of like
there's so many like plans that I had that by the time I go to Hawaii, that like I wanted to be able to do 6 pull-ups. I wanted to be like, there's like a lot of like goals I had, what I wanted to look like, where I wanted to be on the scale, like physique wise, that I got pushed back a lot because of my injury. And so, I mean, I think that like, this is just like a grateful note. Like there was a lot of things that I wasn't able to accomplish, but I did have to take a step back and like focus on my health. And I had to just be appreciative of the fact that like they did just give me the okay to like have no restrictions on this trip and be able to be a part of everything and do that. And to me right now, I'm considering it a blessing and just leaving it at that, because I'm just happy to be getting better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even if like, you know, if you do have any constraints, like you're still gonna be in Hawaii, and like I think like you had said, like I'm just gonna make the most out of it and, you know, enjoy my time there. So
Absolutely.
that's dope.
Are you guys gonna miss me on the next podcast?
No.
No.
Well, I tried.
So last week was Valentine's Day, and like you said that you learned something about people. You collected some data. What's that about?
I collected some data, guys.
Data?
Data. So, okay. And I'm going to say these things, and as guys, I want you to give me your feedback on it, okay? So I have a lot of group chats with females.
Disagree. Oh, okay.
And these girls, like, you know, they're ranging from some are married, some are single, you know, all across the board. Some have boyfriends, some are, you know, fiancés.
What's all across the board?
Like
some of them
like
are cheating.
relationship. No. I mean, low-key. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Exposed.
Which group chat? What's it called?
Yeah, let us
I'm
know.
just kidding. So basically, in these, I was able to collect some things that I feel like if you're a guy, you should pay attention to, because it seemed like an overwhelming amount of women felt like this past Valentine's Day.
Like expectations on Valentine's Day?
Not so much expectations.
Okay, just give it to us.
Okay.
So we're supposed to agree or disagree about something?
I want you to give me your thoughts. Don't just say agree or disagree. I want
Okay.
you to explain through it. So
Okay.
there's a few things
Okay.
that I don't think that guys realize. I kept hearing over and over, like, just give me flowers. Like, why can't you just give me flowers?
The girls asking?
Instead of something else?
No, like, at least give me
at least.
at least give me flowers. And so the reason why they're saying this is because there's a thing like, oh, I mean, I love you every day, why do I have to bring you flowers today, right? And like, oh, like, we don't really need to do Valentine's Day, I'll just take you out to dinner, this and that, whatever, right? I kept hearing, and also I was around a lot of people that I didn't know, and also the girls kept saying this, like, if you're considering like, should I get my girl flowers, just do it. Because I heard so many girls were just so heartbroken. And I know it sounds so shallow, but I understood it after hearing girl after girl after girl who kind of explained their
I don't
situation.
think it's that big of a deal. Like,
Getting or not getting?
no,
Or-
if like she's like she just wants some flowers or something, or you're in the belief that like, oh yeah, holidays and like, you know, this is just to boost the economy and like, you know, we
It's
shouldn't believe in these things.
materialistic.
Yeah, all that. It's just like, bro, it's just flowers.
Just
like if
grab
it makes
'em.
her happy, just get them. But also just like, you don't have to say that either. You don't have to be like, you know, oh, every day I would get you flowers, but today is a whatever. Just give her some flowers. I feel like it's not a hard thing to do.
Just get it from the garden nearby. You don't-
Also, like, I love the thought of just having flowers in the house at all times. Like, in my house, like on our center table, you'll always see like different flowers there from like different
very
colors.
cute. Your
different
mom loves flowers.
My
It's so
mom
sweet.
loves
It's
flowers,
so
and one of the things she says is that like there should always be flowers in the house, and because there's always a reason to be celebrating something, and if you're in that belief, like that, oh, there's always something being celebrating, then like Valentine's Day is one of those things. It's just like, okay, and a day to just like appreciate that love or whatever. So it's not that big of a deal, I think.
Yeah. It's not a big deal in the sense that you should just give her the flowers.
Yeah, they're
And-
flowers. They're good. Like,
So can I share a story? I asked one of my friends if I could, and they said that I could share it on the podcast as long as I didn't share
is
their
it the
name.
cheater?
No, it's not the cheater.
Oh, man.
So she basically said that she hinted at her man all week that she wanted flowers. That like Valentine's Day was coming up and she was very excited about it. She mentioned it lightly, and that they met up at the beginning of the day and they planned to meet up later in the day. This is the vibe, right? And so she said that she like got him a present and everything. And so here it comes. She gives the present. They go out to like, I don't know, breakfast or lunch or something. I don't know. And they meet up. And she asked him straight up. She said like, oh, like why didn't you get me flowers? I was like, first of all, that's ballsy. So go off. But he was like, oh, you know, like good things happen to those who wait. Just be patient. Just be patient. Right? So now she's expecting that later in the day she's going to get flowers. So she's like, said that she was excited all day. She's like thinking about it. And they meet up later in the day. And she said that it like was, she's like looking at the clock and it's like almost midnight. And that she's like, okay, I'm going to head out now. Like I'm leaving. And she's like saying bye and like is walking out the door and this man hasn't handed her flowers yet. So she turns around again and she was like, why didn't you get me flowers? And he was like, I told you that good things happen to those who wait. Just be patient. And Valentine's Day ended.
Okay.
It's been like, I mean, I checked in with her like a few hours ago, but
Oh, so nothing.
nothing.
Oh, I thought there was gonna be like a twist.
No, there was just like put the expectations up. All he had to do, and so like the same girl ended up FaceTiming me that same night, like in full blown tears.
Yeah.
Like all he had to do was get flowers, this and that. And I was like, you know what? You should have did what I did. I went and I got myself flowers.
That's dumb.
Why is that dumb? It made me happy. Buying myself flowers made me happy, so I did it.
Like you need. Okay.
I bought myself flowers. I wanted a flower on Valentine's Day, so I bought myself a flower.
Wow.
It's better than being upset that you didn't get flowers.
I'm just saying, any girl with me won't have that problem.
Hello, hop into Shimmer's
Mr.
DMs.
Romantic.
Okay,
Dang, you dye your hair blonde and you just go all F boy.
no,
Won't
that's not
happen
F
with
boy.
me.
That's the opposite of F boy. He said he's
I'm a
gonna treat
sweet,
her right.
romantic guy. Okay.
Do you hear that voice?
Yeah.
No, but he's like, hey, any girl with me, say
Yeah,
less.
there was some
Being
F boy
taken
in there.
care of,
There was
it
some
was.
F boy in there. It's
F-boy
like 50
antics.
F boy, 50 sweet. You know, that's a good mix.
The F boy that cares.
Yeah, the F boy that cares.
See, like the more that we talk about it, the more that I'm just like, okay, like all of this stuff, who cares? Like
It is-
I just think neither person should really have expectations. And if you do something sweet, it should just come from the heart and just like spending time, appreciating one another. And like if you go on like a nice dinner, like you get her flowers, whatever, it's just like that's cool enough. To me, that's what I think. If she is like, oh, like, why didn't you get this, and we should give presents and all that, and like what we should do based off of like what society says and all that, that's where I'm just like, okay, like, calm down.
So that I would agree with you, and I feel like that's where I was at. Like, that's where I would say.
Yeah.
It was just like time after time, like I like was in these group chats and everything, and I'm like hearing from different girls separately that they just wish that they wanted flowers, and they just like, it was like a very basic thing that they feel like would have made them happy.
I mean, that's I think fine. Like, that's a legitimate sort of thing to like
want. Yeah.
And that's like, that's almost like, you know, when you're in school as a kid and like, it's not that you have to have like the branded stuff and all that, but like just, you just want to participate sometimes in things and like, you know, just at least fit in to a sense that it's just like, let me at least see what this is about, so that like the kid can decide themselves if it's worth it or whatever. But the parents to be like, no, like, you don't get to do anything, like that's where the kid wants it even more and is like, man, like, I just want to be like everyone else. So that reminds me of that
just
kind of
feeling a part of the love,
which is like, you get her the flowers and then maybe she realizes something herself, like, you know what, I like you, you know, as you are, and thanks for this is like a nice gesture in addition, but don't get stuck on like that argument of like the flowers.
Yeah. I mean, none of the girls I know argued with their men. They just privately.
Well, she bawled her eyes out, so like that's really upsetting.
Yeah, but she didn't. I don't know if she said anything to him afterwards, but she made it at least
like she was
seem
affected in that way, right? So.
Most definitely.
Okay, so the Oscars were also last weekend, and we actually watched them together. They were pretty awesome. Eminem came out. I lost my mind. It was incredible.
Cool. Yeah.
The thing that I was kind of confused about was Joaquin Phoenix's speech, and it was shared everywhere, and they're like, oh my god, like, you know, he spoke out and like incredible, whoa.
Yeah.
And I feel the total opposite.
Why?
Can you give me some context?
Joaquin Phoenix, the actor that played the Joker, won for best male actor.
Okay.
Which is, you know, one of the biggest awards, and he came out and made this speech, and it was kind of like, you know, the world is crumbling, and you know, society is moving this way, and I haven't played my part, and I've been this bad human being, and like we should forgive one another, and we should like do better, and there's people suffering, and blah blah blah, right?
Okay.
And people, you know, gave him a standing ovation, and like it was shared everywhere, and I'm just like, what is he talking about? What's the substance here, and what are we gonna do? What's the action?
Yeah.
And it felt like, you know, it felt like another sort of like person, and he might have been genuine. It seems like he was just going off of this like train of thought that it did seem like it was just kind of like, you know, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Which that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like as with Hollywood actors and stuff, as long as they say something, like they could get up on stage and be like, you know, Australia, they're going through this, like I'm with you, or like whatever the case might be. And it's just like, okay, well, what are you doing about it? Like, you have a room full of people that have power and knowledge and resources, and maybe if you got together and like offered a real place, go to this site, or like, you know, who wants to talk to me, and or like give somebody a platform, which some people have done before, where just like, this person is from this, they're gonna speak instead of my speech about this, and they don't have to do that.
Miley Cyrus did that with the homeless.
They don't have to do that. Because, you know, the Oscars for some people, like winning one is a huge deal, as it should be. You know, you accomplish something great, and you can talk about whatever you want to, but at the same time, when people go up there and like use that time to just be like, oh yeah, like, you know, people are suffering. And
I think I felt
whatever.
the same way, like when we're watching it together. But after watching it later, like it was really deep that you know, like one thing is like the way we advance as a society is helping each other, not digging up old past stuff. And I'm pretty sure he's referring to like bad old tweets and stuff, right? And like referring to someone's old tweets and trying to bring them down doesn't help anybody.
Sure.
You're supposed to try to help other people. And you know, like people announce organizations and stuff.
Right.
He played the Joker, and if you watch that movie, he was the Joker guy. He was part of an organization that wasn't helping him. He was part of therapy that wasn't helping him.
Okay.
So like, I guess his thing was saying that like it happens on like a personal basis. Like we advance as a society on a personal basis. Like, and he also went into the veganism thing, like animals are dying when there are substitutes to provide that, whatever. But I think his thing is like, you know, we advance personally, we get healthier and happier mentally just by, you know, bringing each other up. And we need each other. I heard like, you know,
Yeah, I guess that helps,
Mentality.
put it into context of
Yeah.
like, what he maybe meant by it. But yeah, I mean, I was just kind of like, you don't, just because you have that, platform doesn't mean
Yeah.
like you have, it's just like a super, I guess, sensitive time we live in where it's just like everyone feels like they have to say something
Yeah.
or do the right thing.
And
I don't think,
I don't think for him personally,
Yeah.
like, there's Leonardo DiCaprio who, when he won, he didn't have to say anything, but he was like, I believe in, our world is dying.
and he is like part of that entire, like he
Yeah.
has organizations that he's funding himself.
And
like,
he didn't say
cares a lot
he didn't
about
say
it.
anything. Oh, I wanted this for years. He was just like, the world is dying.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, I think these actors are pretty genuine. You can kind of tell when they're not, but I mean, I know what you're saying. Like sometimes you can't tell.
Sure.
So, but it feels like genuine. And
Yeah,
stuff.
I think it's just like it's not even that about whatever he meant, what he's going through, and like all of that. It's more so like the things that we celebrate as a society, which was like we were celebrating the fact that he's saying something, and we see these things happen in front of us all the time, and we're never sharing the constant like problems and solutions that are in front of us. But when someone speaks out about it, we're like, oh yeah, like let me share this because it'll look good or whatever. And like he said something nice, but like when things are happening right in front of us, we are reluctant to call it out, or we're reluctant to like donate or volunteer our time or even just like learn about something.
And I think his commentary was a little like that. When people were clapping, he was like, don't clap.
Okay.
Like
fair.
He was like, this is not for me, this is just something that needs to be out there.
Okay.
So
that I like because he's saying what I'm saying right now, which is like, no, like you're clapping for me and I'm talking about whatever.
Yeah. Like he was doing that throughout. So
but that was interesting. There was also this Justin Bieber interview that happened. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see it. It was Zane Lowe.
no, I want to check it out.
It was.
So don't spoil it.
I won't. I'm not gonna spoil what he said, content or anything. But I just want to discuss something about it. Zane Lowe, first of all, is like a great interviewer. He cares passionately about the music and everything. And he's one of the only people that like someone like Drake will sit down with, or there's a few people like Elliot Wilson is great too. But
Nicki.
Zane Lowe, he's good. Nicki is good with him. But so during the Justin Bieber interview, I just want to say like it was really interesting seeing the shift in like how we saw him grow up versus like now. And the thing that I noticed more than anything in that interview was his body language. He was crouched down the whole time and like looking down, never making eye contact, and just always in a state of like anxiety. And every time he would talk about Jesus, he would kind of like lift up, and he was almost confident as if like Jesus has my back. And it's really interesting seeing people talk about faith in that way, which is like when celebrities I think go through like this movement, whether it be Kanye West in his like spiritual journey, Justin Bieber, or even like athletes like we've seen Muhammad Ali experience Islam and like spread it to whoever he could at his stage. I feel like they have a different reaction than normal people, which is like, I've been sent this message and I have this power to spread it in this way, and so I have to like really just preach about it and act accordingly. But yeah, I mean, that was just like an interesting thing to see about like body language and how faith can literally kind of like change physical things about somebody. So yeah, I would encourage anybody to check that out and just kind of like notice that sort of like interaction between the two. Let's go over one last like fun thing before we introduce the guest, and it's this message that came in. So we've been kind of going hard at these parodies recently, and it's been awesome.
They've been really good.
Thank you.
We've kind of had like a mental sort of shift in how we're like viewing things and like how we're working on things, and it's been really fun and unique, and we're getting like different feedback, and it's cool. I think it's before we were kind of like, oh, we know this is like great art and we're gonna put it out, we're kind of like, I don't know how to say it, but we're kind of like super confident in the art that we're making, and now it's kind of like we're starting from the bottom again and we're building back up. It kind of feels like that to me, at least. And that's super fun. Like,
sure.
I find it interesting. So.
I mean, it's funny because it's just like, I think we feel like what we felt when we first clicked and we were just pushing out content. on our Ronopono channel specifically, and it's like before that is the exact same like cycle that happened with me personally, which was like, you know, when we first started that channel, it was like, oh, we were just pushing out a bunch of content, and then it was like it comes with expectations and all of these things, and then it kind of takes you off track of like what this is really about. You go through this drought, and it's just like you don't feel like necessarily making it, and you don't know who it's for and like what it's for and stuff. And then some idea or some like, you know, revelation comes along the way, which at the time when I met you, it was like that, which was just like you were excited because you were fresh in like that, like that desi sort of like
I've never gotten that many
space.
eyes on like my piece of work or something.
Yeah, and it felt like the first time when I started doing it, it was like, whoa, this is fun. Now I have somebody to like do it with.
Yeah.
And then we started pushing out content like that. And then again, like, you know, I think things got busy for all of us, and like, you know, it just, life catches up and just things happen, and you're just like, you know, man, like, should we keep like making this? Like, you know, is it still going to do whatever? And like, then you go through this drought again, and then you get busy and all that. And then again, now we're at that stage where we're just like, it's like we were first starting out, which is just like, all right, let's work all through the weekend and like, you know, not sleep and just push out content. And
I'm
so
trying to
it's
work
really fun.
so that we don't have a drought. Like,
for sure, yeah.
That's I think the
And
mentality.
just enjoy it. I think like we're really enjoying it.
Like
again.
it's really fun.
It's
like
so fun.
no matter what, like the numbers, views, whatever, it's fun. That's the number one priority.
And what's crazy is like we're not getting as many views or interaction as like we were, you know, a year ago or anything, and like we were peaking, and right now we're like getting nothing, but people are still like, yo, like this is the best,
and
like,
that's all that matters.
The quality,
you
and
know?
like, you know,
like the people that stick with us and the people that love it, like.
Exactly. I think they can see the dedication and all that, and like the efforts, and actually like more comment that we get than anything is, you guys are so underrated. I can't believe like this is still love your ass. So it's awesome. But there was this funny like DM that came along recently, and they were replying to I think our nonstop video, and it says, y'all probably won't see this, but I have to confess, I used this video last year for a parody presentation for my speech class. He wanted us to make a video with friends or family, and I wasn't about to try and make up lyrics. I'm not that talented, and also I would cringe and die. So I told him that y'all were my cousin brothers, because, you know, brown people can pass for that kind of ish, I guess. And he believed it. So I presented this in front of my whole class, and apparently y'all are my cousins from my mom's side, and y'all live in New Jersey, and we all made this video together when we were bored. Please don't sue me for this, Bhaijaans. I'm really sorry. Okay, bye.
That
also,
is so funny.
Also, some people were scared to mess with me because they believe I have 4 big brothers. So thank you for that too.
Oh, is he like young?
Yeah, I think he's a younger kid.
That is so, honestly, like, I'm happy for him that he was able to like finesse that.
I'm not. I'm absolutely suing him.
Make your own parody. You were not talented.
Funny. That's funny. Actually, we used to get messages like this all the time, which is like, hey, don't say anything, but I told my friends that you guys are my cousins. Like that's always for some reason something that kids tell their friends for like that approval and validation. But it's just cute. I never respond because I'm just like, you know what, like let them, whatever.
Send a picture of you alone, like, and send it to Frost, and we'll Photoshop ourselves with you.
Yeah, that'd be funny. We should do that. That would be really funny.
And we charge for it. It's like
But no, like that's awesome. I was at a desi party at Dawat last night, and there was a bunch of little kids that came up, and they were like, hey, we love your videos and stuff. And I haven't been to one of these in a long time because like our parents just go and stuff, and my sister was over, so like she was like, okay, you have to come. And these kids, like, they pulled up the TikToks, and they were like, thanks. We follow you on TikTok, like we love them and stuff. Wow. And like one of the girls actually like reacted to it and stuff, and and she started doing like a renegade thing, the renegade dance to awesome. It. And I don't know why, like I just love when little kids like something, when they catch on to something. Of course, like we're always putting in the lyrics and the efforts and everything that it's gonna be like, you know, that adults are gonna get, and like it's gonna be smart stuff. But when kids like it, it's just like a different joy, I feel like. When you can be the source of like joy for the kids, and like they dance to things and stuff, like that's always like a token that comes with doing all this. So To this kid that wrote into us, yeah, send us a picture and let's continue this BS. Let's keep it going. Okay, so let's introduce the guest. We're really excited to have her on today. The stranger is an American Muslim civil rights and political activist. She's the Maryland director for the Council on American Islamic Relations, and she has helped out my family along with many other families along the way. She's an incredible human being.
Super impressive.
And just a great face for Muslim women and Muslims in general. So please welcome Dr. ZAINAB Chaudry.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's just start off. I want to start off right away about, like, you know, what a crazy past year you've had now that we're in 2020, and just kind of before we even talk about, you know, CAIR and all of that, like some of the highlights of 2019 of what you guys were able to accomplish. So what do you think some of the top things that, you know, you were able to accomplish with CAIR and everything in 2019?
I think in 2019, one of the most kind of successful points for me personally, or one of the highlights that I really enjoyed, was that CAIR participated in our first lobby day in Annapolis.
Okay.
So because we do a lot of work around social justice, civil rights work, and a big part of our work is to empower young Muslims and to engage them like in the political process, we were able to put together like a lobby day where we had Muslims from around the state come to the state capitol and meet with lawmakers on issues that impact us like on a daily basis. And I know when people think about making law, it sounds so boring, but when you learn more about what goes on behind the scenes, like it's really fascinating. So that was one of the highlights.
I know one of the things that I was really excited to see was, you know, there was this kid who had been, I think like the front of this, something that you guys were working on trying to get past, which was like, having a day off for Eid for Muslims in Baltimore. Is that right?
For sure. Yeah.
What was that about? How'd that go?
So there is a campaign, Eid Equality campaign, around the state in different localities, different counties, where Muslims are mobilizing to get Eid equality, where they want schools to be closed for Eid. And we were all, I think, born and raised in Maryland. So we know what it's like to grow up and not be able to skip school because our parents are like, you've got to go to school, right?
Or have to miss a day of school and have to make up for it.
Exactly. And be marked absent and have to like take exams.
Because I mean, I was definitely missing school. I wasn't going to miss Eid. There's no way. But yeah, you would have to be absent from school. Right?
Yeah. And my parents are very strict about that. They were always like, you've got to go to school. Like, you can't go to Eid. So it really, it was pretty tough. But
well, how do they decide? Because our whole thing is like on the moon, and you don't know if it's one day or the next. So do you know about that? Like how they decide? How would we go about that?
So there is a body called the Fiqh Council of North America.
Okay.
And they put out like a calendar of dates for when Eid is scheduled to land. So they calculate up to about a decade in advance. And now, like with astronomy and like so many different technologies, they're able to really kind of like get a head start on identifying and pinpointing what date Eid is going to land on. Of course, there's always going to be the moonsighters, right? That's a great tradition on Eid. You go out the night before, you go look for the moon and do the moon sighting. But for the last several years, we've noticed that the calculated date has been pretty accurate.
Okay.
And so we're comfortable with like presenting that to school boards of education and encouraging them to.
Because
they should just give off for both days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just in case. Because wasn't it
But we don't know if it's like a while ahead. It's like 3 possible days. Because it could be the 2 days. And
wasn't
then
it last Ramadan when it was like, they were like, oh, it's actually today?
Yeah,
and I was
half
like,
the people started the
yeah,
next day.
I was like, all right, I'm just not going to eat the rest of the day then because I'll just start now or whatever.
And then also, like, I think 2 Eids ago, it was like a mosque 20 miles down was doing Eid the whole separate day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what happened to us. Because it was like, we usually go off of ISB, which is a big mosque in Baltimore. And for some reason where we live, which is like 40 minutes away, they were like, no, we're not going to go by them. We're going to go by like Saudi Arabia. And like some people do that and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Some people follow Saudi Arabia. Some people are like, no, it's where you are. So, I mean.
But no, that's so cool that like, that's finally a thing. Because when I was growing up, I didn't think that like that would ever be.
We still get some resistance. Like there's a handful of people who are like, well, you can't calculate because you've got to be able to cite the moon. So what we tell them is, like for the school districts that agree to close schools on the calculated dates, to just not like obstruct that process. Like you're still welcome to celebrate Eid on the day that you're your mosque designates it, or like they call
Oh,
for
you're
it
saying you get some resistance from Muslims?
from other Muslims, like a very, very tiny like number. Like the vast
My
majority
son
of Muslims,
needs to go to school.
or well, it's more kind of like
Yeah,
the moon
yeah.
sighting thing, because they're like, oh well, how can you designate a date when
Right,
you haven't sighted the moon? Like
Yeah.
what happened last Ramadan was like a big deal, because literally the night before 4 a.m., 3 a.m., people were texting back and forth, do we have Eid tomorrow or not? And that
Yeah.
would have been
Even
difficult
the
for schools to
start.
manage.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when we weren't sure when Ramadan was starting, and then it ended up they announced it at midnight that
Yeah,
in
that's what we were
4
saying.
hours.
Yeah.
We
Oh, are
ended up
they
starting
talking
late.
about Eid?
Okay, so I mean, like that's a big deal. Was there anything else that was a super highlight for you in the 2019 with CAIR?
I think one of the really cool points I really liked was that, so each year we have a youth leadership symposium in Annapolis. So we bring like young people to Annapolis to meet with lawmakers and tour the governor's mansion, and to just kind of like, you know, be more aware of like how the political process happens. And when I was there, I met an intern who was staffing in one of the delegates' office. She was, or not staffing, interning in one of the delegates' office. And she introduced herself to me, and I didn't recognize her, but she told me that she had met me like 3 years prior. And she looked at me, she's like, do you remember me? And I was like, no. She was like, I was part of Mills. Like, she was part of the Youth Leadership Symposium 3 years ago.
Okay.
And she was like, that's what
And now
kind of...
she made it.
Now she's pretty, right? She's like interning in a delegate's office, and it
worked.
just made my heart so proud.
Why do
I
you
was like, we need
I mean,
that.
why do you think that that's important? Like, I feel like to kids that seems like, oh, like politics is corrupt. Like, why would I want to be a part of this process?
You know, I tell kids every day, I'm like, guys, we're like living in under an administration where we currently have a Muslim ban in effect. Like, by all intents and purposes, however you want to frame it, there is currently a Muslim ban in effect in the United States of America. And we are living under the most fascist, most imperialist, most xenophobic administration. And a lot of their policies impact us on a daily basis in so many different ways. And I remember growing up, like, I was born and raised in Baltimore, but I'd never been to Annapolis. And it wasn't until I was like in my late teens, early 20s that I even knew that was a state capital, because it was just like not a thing. You know, my parents were not like politically savvy, or they didn't care about that stuff. But I feel like, you know, if we're not at the table, then we definitely are on the menu. And our lawmakers need to see that our communities are engaged, that Muslims cannot be discounted, that we are part of, you know, society, and we deserve to be heard and treated equally as everybody else.
Yeah. What was that gum that you guys had with CAIR? That was like the anti-Muslim.
Islamophobia.
Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, so that was a campaign that CAIR started a couple years ago.
It was so cute.
It was like
That's like the way that I could describe it. It was like a very cute way to like make a statement.
It was interesting when that started out, because CAIR is a very like professional, very proper organization, and people were like not really used to us being funny or like humorous, humorous.
It was like a funny video on like a medicine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was like the premise?
So the goal was to poke fun at Islamophobia, because we know that anti-Muslim bigotry happens. But instead of being like reactionary all the time, like we figured a fun campaign to kind of raise awareness and provide like the antidote or like the cure to anti-Muslim bigotry would be like a fun way to push back at it. And who doesn't love humor? Like we've got to laugh more.
They actually had it in like physical, like chewing gum too.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like let's dive into what even is CAIR. How did you get your start there?
CAIR. So CAIR is the Council on American Islamic Relations. We are America's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. So basically what we do is protect the rights of Muslims in our country, work for justice. So we work intersectionally. We don't focus on just justice for Muslims, but justice for all, with a big focus on Muslims. And we work to like enhance the understanding of Islam. Like, so I'm a visible Muslim. I wear like a headscarf. And I remember just growing up, like when I started wearing the scarf when I was 19 years old, you would just get asked all kinds of random questions. Like, you know, are you allowed to shower with that on? Or do you have to shower with that on? Or are you allowed to like go to sleep, like taking it off? And just really kind of silly questions. And I think it made me realize that there's a lot of misunderstanding about the faith. And that leads to more hate crimes and bias incidents and things like that. So I actually am not a lawyer or anything. People think you've got to be a lawyer to work in social justice work, or you've got to like be a PR person. I was actually a pharmacist. So I worked in pharmacy for like several years. And then
if you couldn't get any browner than that, like, okay, done the doctor thing, and now let's go towards civil rights. Like,
you got to follow that trajectory, right?
Yeah.
That's how, you know, with Pakistani parents, they kind of pigeonhole you oftentimes in certain careers.
How did that opportunity present itself to you?
You know, I think I was just like really frustrated and like really disillusioned and sick and tired of being a pharmacist. I had done it like for such a long time, and I was like, I wanted to do something that was actually benefiting and improving our communities and like assisting our communities. And I was like having a conversation with a friend, and her kid had been bullied in school, and I was like, I remember talking to my husband about it, and I was like, you know, this is messed up. And he's like, and he's actually the one who told me about CAIR, because he used to intern at the CAIR New York office. He's an attorney. And so he was like, why don't you go volunteer? And I just showed up at their office in DC and knocked on the door, and they were like, who are you and how can we help you?
Right.
And the rest is history.
And what's your position now?
So currently I'm the director of the Maryland office.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so
Making your way all the way up.
just trying to do it right. Just trying to keep it real and trying to like give back to our communities and hopefully inspire and empower young Muslims along the way to also give back.
Well, I think it's super important that a woman is, you know, I see you, you know, speaking about CAIR and being a leader in so many of the events and showing up to so many different, you know, protests and different activism retreats or whatever. And just having a woman wearing a hijab as the front of that is so important. And so, like, you know, I really, you know, it makes me really proud at like as someone who looks up to you to see that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's super cool, especially so I met you in like my college days when I was
UB.
like in the when I was in the MSA.
That, yeah.
And a lot of times I would get questions from like aunties and uncles and just from other people like for what reason do you do this? Like what are you providing? Like what is this for? Like what, like focus on your studies, like you're not going to make a difference. Like, you know, in fewer words than that, they would kind of just like devalue that.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're doing kind of validates every little thing that everybody's doing in their daily lives. So having an actual council that can take on these problems and kind of present them in a bigger way, you know, reaching out to news sources, that's very impressive. But then even your story alone, taking, you know, just being just frustrated and then, you know, diving into that world and really making something of it. So, I mean, I think that's really, really cool.
You know, it's so funny. Like, the idea of being unapologetic in our identity is something that I think with young Muslims, especially, like, I think this newer generation that's growing up, like, it's different. It's a different ballgame for them. But when my generation was growing up, like, it was a foreign concept. Mm-hmm. It was like, there was so much pressure to conform to, like, your society. To fit in, exactly, right. And I remember growing up, I was in middle school, and one of my best friends, like, she was constantly bullied and harassed, and like that was actually, I think, one of the experiences that compelled me to want to start wearing hijab, because I was like, you know, we live in a society where women are constantly objectified, and you've got to like conform, and you've got to feel like you're like living up to like what other people want you to be. No, you live up to what you were destined to be, and you got to fulfill your potential, like, and be unapologetic in your identity. And for me, part of my identity is as a Muslim. It's a big part of my identity. And so just being able to give back that piece and like empower other young Muslims and hopefully other interfaith like children is just really an honor and a privilege. Well,
what was your upbringing like? Did you ever face bullying yourself, and, you know, what type of like family background and things like that?
Yeah, of course. So typical immigrant story, like my parents, I'm first generation American. My parents are immigrants. My parents came to the United States. I was born a couple years later, and we grew up in the west side of Baltimore. So there were very few Muslims around, and my parents struggled a lot. Like, education was a big thing for them. So like everything was focused on, you know, going to school, which is why we missed Eid all the time, because if it landed on a school day. But they really were like adamant that like we had to get a good education. But I mean, they struggled sometimes to just put food on the table. And like, I think going to school, being like the only Muslim, like was something that definitely like impacted me. Like growing up, I was like, why am I different than everybody else? But it wasn't until I was in my teen years that I realized that's a strength. Like when we are not meant to be cookie cutter, like impersonations of one another. We are meant to be individual and unique. And every person has like their own kind of set of contributions and values that they bring to the table. And when we like just feel like compelled to be like everybody else, like we're cheating ourselves.
So I've seen a little bit about, what the process might look like when somebody is facing discrimination and the people that you work with. But for people that don't know, what is the process usually like? What's the goal, and how do you hear about a story where somebody is, facing some sort of a hate crime? What's the typical like procedure?
So we encourage, first of all, for anybody who experiences a bias-motivated incident or hate crime to report it. Because right now, one of the biggest challenges we face is the underreporting.
Like to the police?
To the police or to CAIR or to anybody else.
Okay.
If they do report it to the police, like how do you guys hear about it?
So sometimes we'll learn about it through word of mouth, like in the community, like somebody will contact us and be like, did you hear about this incident that happened with so-and-so's son or something like that? And sometimes we'll hear about it through law enforcement or through other community partner like organizations who are aware of it. And they're like, well, this is a Muslim family. You're a Muslim organization. They might feel better for you to connect with them. But the majority of our cases are through direct like contact. But we encourage like folks to feel empowered to report it, even if you don't want to pursue legal action. Like just knowing that you are taking the initiative to stand up for yourself, which we all have every right to do when we're faced with those kind of circumstances, it can shift like the conversation and pull us away from the victim mentality that develops when we are targeted or victimized in that way. So they can reach out to CAIR directly. They can reach out to our Civil Rights Department, civilrights@cair.com, or contact the Maryland Outreach Department, mdoutreach@cair.com. So typically what we do in these kind of cases is we will do an intake. Like we'll assess the situation, kind of get all the information, the facts of the incident, what happened, who was there, the date, things like that. And we never take any action without the family or the person who's like targeted, without them feeling comfortable about how we proceed. And then like depending on the situation, we'll provide them with options on ways that we can proceed. If we feel like there's a potential for legal action, then we defer it to civil rights. If we feel like it's more of an advocacy situation where we can leverage media to pressure like certain stakeholders to take action, then we go that route.
I want to talk about that. What's the point of that? So like, you've contacted the police, say nothing happens. You've gotten that media coverage to get this story out there. Some families hold back from this step often because they don't want to be targeted again. They don't want to. It's almost embarrassing.
Or cause like a ruckus, I feel like.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like immigrants don't want to, make a big deal out of something because they want to kind of, almost blend in and not really.
They don't want it
cause
as a part of their, the thing. So like, what's the point? What does that do?
So when we, in situations where we feel like media is a valuable part of the solution, putting media pressure on these kind of cases can be helpful in different ways. It causes law enforcement to take these situations seriously, because a lot of times when unfortunately hate crimes and bias motivated incidents are reported, we'll get like kind of stonewalling sometimes from law enforcement, where they won't take the situation as seriously as it deserves to be treated. So media pressure can be a very powerful and very instrumental way to effect positive change. But the part that I really appreciate about this part of the solution is that it spreads the word and it lets the person who is targeted know that they're not alone. There's other people who are also going through the exact same thing, if not worse. And it encourages and motivates them to also come forward and speak out. Yeah. Because if we, like sometimes I think, especially within the immigrant community and sometimes in Muslim communities, people feel like, oh, well, if we don't talk about it, it'll go away and it'll make everything okay. And I know I grew up in a family where there are some things we just don't talk about because it just, was uncomfortable or awkward.
Right.
But if we don't talk about these issues, then we can't find solutions, and people are suffering in silence. And so when we expose them like in a controlled kind of environment, then we empower others to also come forward and say, not only is this wrong, but I know somebody else, or I personally have been targeted. And what can we do collectively
It's like similar to
find
the
solutions.
to the results of the Me Too movement, where it's similar, where people feel embarrassed or they feel like nobody would take it seriously, and there's not a lot of like legal action that they can go to, and then just by putting their stories out there, it encouraged a lot of other women to come out, and it was like this snowball effect.
And now there's a movie, right? Margot Robbie and somebody else. It was just
That's the Bombshell? That's what that is? Oh, okay. I want to check that out.
Megyn Kelly exposing Roger Ailes and the Fox News.
Yeah,
story.
I saw that movie, like the trailer of it, but I didn't know that's what it was about. We hear often, and I see you in DC doing your thing, marching and speaking out and stuff. We hear often that what's the point of marching? Go get a job. Why are you guys out here? Like, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Why do you do it? What's the point?
Because we've got to stand loud, proud. We've got to make our voices heard. One of the most effective forms of resistance is being present and vocally speaking truth to power. And one of the ways that we speak truth to power is by making sure that we show up in the spaces where power is and we confront it, whether that be in the halls of Annapolis or the halls of Congress or outside of embassies, depending on whether it's genocide in different parts of the world that we're challenging. But that physical presence just communicates that that the status quo is not acceptable. And we saw during the civil rights movement with the March on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how impactful it was to mobilize people. And there is power in numbers. Each and every single one of us has power in ourselves, but just being able to be in those spaces and speak truth to power, it can help bring about change.
Yeah. I think when it was a little bit confusing when, the president took office, and people in the Muslim communities didn't know what to do. And I heard, it was almost comical a little bit of what people were thinking. So there was friend groups that I was in that they were like, okay, Muslims need to buff up. We need to go to the gym. We need to get strong. We're gonna physically fight this off.
Take that protein.
Yeah. And then there was people that were like, no, we need to ignore everything. We need to stay focused. We need to make money because money is power. These are real people in my community, uncles talking, are oh, it's crisis time. What are we gonna do? And then, literally a guy struggled. He's like, we need to go to the gym. This is a real solution. What is the bigger picture here? Is it true that the money is going to be running it? On our last podcast, we had the military vet that was talking about, them needing to target one group of people so that they can stay in power. Do you know anything about what the bigger picture is and what's the right approach?
You can't deny that money talks. Right. Money's got power. But I think that when we look at, for example, Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, right? He's completely funded by grassroots, ordinary Americans who are either minimum wage or below minimum wage, or money's important, but I think more than money, we got to strategize internally on what different factors and components we can capitalize on, what strengths within our communities we can kind of harness to really bring about change.
What does that mean?
So organizing power. So, for example, when the Muslim ban was announced, the executive order was announced in 2017, we saw masses, people just stood up and went to airports around the country and they shut them down. Right. And the power of the people is just so incredible, because many of those people probably had never donated to a Muslim organization in their life.
Yeah. Right.
But they saw what was happening and they were like, we're not going to be silent. And a lot of them were non-Muslims. The majority of them were actually not Muslim.
It was really cool seeing signs Jews for Muslims and stuff like that, having other groups that are traditionally or thought to be almost against each other, coming out and being we're here for you and with you.
For sure. And I think a lot of Muslims were actually at home, concerned or afraid or not knowing what to do.
Right.
And I think just showing up in those spaces and speaking out can be such a powerful way to communicate. But I think internally, just strategizing and being more politically and civically engaged is also important. Are you eligible to vote? Are you registered to vote? Do you vote? Do you know which district you live in? Do you know who your representatives are on the local level or in Congress? Have you ever written a letter? Have you ever met with them? Do they know that you are their constituent? Like when we think about elected officials, we think about people who have power over us, but that's not the case. We got to change the way we think. They are public servants. We are taxpayers. We pay their salary. So we have the power to say to them, I'm your constituent. You need to answer to my concerns. Like if I have a problem, I'm going to bring it up to you, and I need to hear what your office is doing to rectify it.
You spoke about Bernie. I know that he has a handful of Muslims in his team and his campaign. If you can give us a little bit of advice about who we should look out for that is going to benefit our communities, if you know anything about that,
Or
I think that would be
even how
helpful.
to vote or how to choose who we want to vote for based off of our values.
Yeah, for sure. So this is in my personal capacity. CAIR as a 501c3 does not endorse any candidate, like in the organizational capacity, but in my personal capacity, I strongly encourage everyone to look up like where the candidates stand on issues that matter to you, and don't let anybody tell you who to vote for. Like that's one thing. So I'm also always very reluctant to tell people who I support, because I want everybody to kind of like make their own best judgment based off of the information that they have and what's important to them. Right. Yes, I am a huge Bernie fan. Like I'm a huge supporter. I think not just because he's the Jewish uncle who cares about Muslims and Palestinians. Right? He's actually caring about the forgotten parts of society that a lot of presidents have not typically paid a lot of attention to. But just do your diligence, like research, look up where candidates stand on issues, and volunteer for campaigns. Like one thing with Bernie's campaigns, they've been very effective, is like mobilizing grassroots, like organizers, encouraging folks to get involved in the campaign on a local level through their local office. And you can also register or get trained to register people to vote, like in your local communities. Hold voter registration drives so that people who otherwise might think, oh, our voices don't count, like they can be encouraged and compelled to register to vote as well and actually rock the vote on election day. Because voting is so important. It's such a big part of like the political process, and just being engaged is like super key.
Yeah.
Do you, so I know you're the director of CAIR for Maryland. Do you work with other CAIR branches, and like, are there interpersonal relationships there?
For sure. So CAIR, the national headquarters is based in Washington, D.C. So the Maryland office is under the national headquarters in D.C., but we've got about 30-some chapters in about 20-some states across the country. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about the organization is that we never operate unilaterally. Like it's not each chapter kind of working in a silo. There's a symbiotic kind of relationship. And we have like a shura process where whenever the organization takes a position on an issue, like we internally strategize, like, if this is in the best interest of the Muslim community specifically for us to do that. So yeah, there's definitely that conversation happening right now. So CAIR has a strong youth leadership program every year in Maryland. So we're working to provide support to the Ohio chapter so they can also bring a similar program to their state capital.
I want to highlight some of your accomplishments, and I want to ask you a follow-up question.
Oh, no,
with that.
You can skip that part.
No, I have to, because I think
fast
it's important to know. In 2015, you were the first Muslim appointed to the Maryland State Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. You were nominated Changemaker at the 2016 White House Summit on the United States. What is it? United States Women?
United States of Women.
Okay, and then in 2016, you were recognized as one of the Baltimore Sun's 25 women to watch. We've seen that in the Congress, there's people that look like us now, and people that look like you with hijab,
Yes.
and that's incredible. So, what have these accomplishments? What kind of opportunities have these accomplishments brought to you, and where do you hope to eventually take that?
I feel like all praise is due to Allah. Like I feel like we sometimes we feel like we're accomplishing so much, but I feel like the blessings are truly from God, and we never do this work alone. Like I know with every single event that we put on, there's like tens, if not hundreds of people behind the scenes who are helping make it successful, who never get credit. So huge shout out to those folks, because there's just so much that goes into each and every single event that we put on, and each accomplishment that each of us incur. And one of the best ways that I feel like we can respond is just paying it forward. I feel like sometimes you meet people who kind of fall into this like mentality that, oh, this is mine, like I don't want to share it with anybody because it's going to diminish like my glory. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is meeting people in the community or anywhere who feel like, you know, threatened by somebody else's success.
Right.
I remember one time there was another organization who was holding an event, and I shared the flyer, and one of my like volunteers texted me. She was like, "Oh, Sister Zainab, why are you sharing this flyer? You know, like, this is not a CAIR event." Like, and I was like, that would never diminish from a CAIR event for me to share that flyer. I feel like we have a responsibility to uplift other people and to uplift other causes and organizations. And I feel like that's where the true success is. Like, when we are able to leverage our platforms to distribute like this success or this power or like this, you know, influence to people who can help move the needle forward in the positive direction on so many issues, like, that's when we are truly successful. So, and just being able to mentor like other young Muslims who are now like interning for like delegates and senators in Annapolis, I mean, it's just so incredibly rewarding. So,
Well, you know, what I was getting at, right? Are you ever
you're
gonna
planning to intern?
No. Are you ever going to want to go for any political position?
My place is always going to be speaking truth to power.
Okay.
I feel like I've
That was a
seen
very political answer.
Very diplomatic answer.
very straight from the heart, though. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people, I've seen people who run for office and it changes them. I feel like sometimes people, like, their priorities change, and like, you know, even if they don't want to, like, they're influenced by different factors. And I don't want that to be my guiding motivation. Like, I never want to think about the fact that a donor donated to my campaign, and so I'm like, you know, obligated to support them in a certain way. But that's not to say that people should not run for office. I think we need more Muslims in office for sure. Representation matters. And my faith is in like your generation, because mashallah, there are so many Muslims who are up and coming in college and high school who just recently graduated who have like potential to run for office. But I feel like, me personally, my place is like always going to be speaking truth to power.
Yeah. I think, you know, you said this earlier about like, you know, people that are competitive, and don't let other people kind of rise up, and people that are trying to get to their level, they kind of kick them down. I think that's an overall sort of problem that we have in our communities, especially coming from a Desi community in general, where I see like the mosque politics between uncles that like, they don't necessarily care for, you know, the betterment of the entire community. What's important to them is like that they are the leader and stuff. And so, yeah, I hope like in our generation and like we're able to kind of provide those platforms and things. You said that you wanted to talk about the 2020 combating intolerance and creating a safer, more inclusive world this year. So what does that mean, and how are you going to sort of like approach that?
So just to piggyback off the other point that you made, I
Sure.
completely agree with that. And I think part of the fact that there was like so many different voices vying for a piece of the pie is because when you're part of a community where there hasn't been a lot of access to different platforms, like, people constantly feel like, oh, we've got to stay relevant. And that's one way of staying relevant, is like being part of that conversation. But that's one of the reasons why what you guys are doing with this podcast and what other young Muslims who are up and coming, who are developing their own platforms, is so powerful, because you're sending the message that we're not going to wait for somebody else to provide us with a platform. We're going to carve out our own. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
For 2020, like with the presidential campaign this season, this year, there's always like an uptick in Islamophobia and hate crimes, bias incidents that we witness like across the country. So one of the biggest focuses right now this year is going to be to get out the Muslim vote. And so we're going to be rolling out like a get out the vote campaign, inshallah, by this summer, where we're going to be holding voter registration drives like in mosques around the state, encouraging folks to get trained to register people to vote, and just be more engaged in the political process. Like pick a campaign and volunteer. Like just get involved, because we got to show up. And it's just incredible to see, like, I mean, not to harp on Bernie again, but to see the incredible momentum that he's been able to generate within the Muslim community, because a lot of folks are volunteering.
Yeah, I think I forget where I was volunteering with this group in Baltimore, and they went to a lot of like homeless shelters in different places around the city that they would help them register to vote and then take buses out and get them there.
For sure.
And I feel like with the different like community centers and the mosques that we have, I think ISB might actually do this, but like I think they take buses to go
To the
like,
polling places.
to polling places, right?
Nice.
So I feel like we should do that across the nation. I feel like that would help a lot. You give them a quick little rundown of what these people, believe in, and see if they match up or whatever, and then take them there.
So that's an excellent point for us, because one of the things we want to do is also put out a voter scorecard. So like in this candidate scorecard, it'll kind of highlight where the candidates stand on different issues. So without telling you who to vote for, we can at least inform Muslims on, where candidates stand on issues that matter to you. And then so each voter is making their own decision, but they've got the information that they need. They don't got to go Googling or digging to find out who's the ideal person.
Yeah. Do you get time for fun besides, a part of your busy schedule? Are there people that you're excited to see when it comes to especially like Muslims in the media and stuff these days, and anybody that you think is doing a really good job at that?
It's crazy, because when you love what you do, it's like every day is fun, even though it's like supremely stressful.
Sure.
But I think having a healthy work-life balance is so important.
Right.
And self-care is huge. It needs to be prioritized. I know. Yeah. That's why I eat a donut a day and like tons of chocolate.
I was gonna say, what is your version of self-care? Like, some people it's a face mask, some people it's a massage. I'm just curious.
I love spending time with friends.
Okay.
Hanging out with my best friends, hanging out with my family, just eating a lot of chocolate. Chocolate's always like a good thing. I don't care. I'm not, discriminatory. All chocolate is good chocolate. Just like going out to museums. I love art. So like when there's like cool exhibits in different museums in DC, I'll try to go check them out, just have some downtime. But work takes up a big chunk of my life. I'm trying to be better about like that work-life balance.
Yeah. I had asked if there's anybody in the media that you're excited about that, like, we definitely don't have our community as much represented in the media. So any Muslims that you can think of that you like?
Mehdi Hassan is like bombastic. If you guys haven't checked him out, check him out. He's a fierce voice, and he has access to platforms, and he's like very like articulate about issues that impact our community. So Mehdi Hassan, who directly works in media, and then of course activists include Zahra Bilu from CAIR San Francisco Bay Area chapter. I would follow her on Facebook. Obviously Linda Sarsour, you guys already know Linda Sarsour, everybody did know Sister Linda.
But what about like entertainment people and like Muslim entertainers? Like, do you like enjoy any Muslim comedians or or like do you watch
Amber's literally like, do you like Hassan Minhaj?
No, I mean not
Muslim comedians. I mean, what other Muslim comedians?
Hassan Minhaj is definitely like huge. He's
No, I'm asking if she enjoys any of that.
But do you know other Muslim comedians?
I'm trying to give her something to jog her memory.
I know, pop quiz time, right? I would probably have to think about it. I actually don't watch much TV besides news. Mm-hmm. But if I did, like, obviously Daily Show, they're not. Obviously Trevor Noah is not Muslim, but he's political satire. It's like that.
Yeah,
it's a great way to kind of like put a humorous spin on some really heavy topics. Because otherwise, like, you're just constantly like, we're going to hell in a hand, like the world's just ending. But it helps you kind of put things in perspective.
Right.
Hassan Minhaj is great. I would definitely encourage like following his stuff. Mm-hmm. And Dino Badella. Dino Badella is also pretty cool. He's Arab American comedian / not politician. He's a political satire.
Yeah.
Did you guys really wear?
Yeah. At
what was that event called?
That is a DC.
It's something gala.
It was a
oh wow. Okay.
It was a charity that like helps build schools in Pakistan, and us and him were headlining it.
Yeah. We didn't know him before, but
you guys have gone big time. That's awesome.
No, but it was fun. He was a really good
we were the youngest ones there, so it's like we were performing like our style of comedy and music in front of like a bunch of like uncles and aunties, and some of them were like, they were hip and they were like, that was awesome, and some of them they were like, what's going on?
A little clueless.
Yeah. That was cool though.
There's a generational kind of a gap there sometimes.
Yeah, I mean we're trying our best to be like representatives of the things that we come from and all that too, so we'll see. But anything else that you want to leave the audience with when it comes to anything that you've sort of experienced, things that you have coming up, and where people can find you?
For sure. So for young people who are following your podcast, April 2nd, we're going to have our Youth Leadership Symposium in Annapolis for 2020. And this year's theme is going to be focusing on conflict resolution. because we find that a lot of times, like when we talk about building relationships and like being engaged and being successful, like one of the key components of that is learning how to manage conflicts and different personalities and people who might not necessarily jive with our way of thinking, but who still play like an integral role, like in, you know, in our realm of influence. So I encourage folks to register for that, and we do have scholarships for people who can't afford it. It's just going to be $10 nominal fee, but if anybody needs a scholarship, we can definitely have sponsors cover that fee. So I'll share the flyer with you once we have all of that publicized.
Yeah, anything you want linked, we can put in the description. So
fantastic. And if you guys are eligible to vote, then register to vote. If you're registered to vote, then make sure you rock the vote and take your neighbors and your colleagues, your family, everybody with you to the polls. Make it a party. Make it like a get out the vote party, like on election day, because we need to make sure that the Muslim voice is heard.
Absolutely.
Awesome. At the end of every podcast, we ask our strangers the same question. And Shamir, if you want to take that away.
If you could describe yourself in any flavor, what would it be and why?
Let's see. Any flavor.
It doesn't have to be an ice cream flavor necessarily.
Okay. I'm going to have to give this one some thought. Maybe mangoes.
Okay.
Maybe mango, because I'm Pakistani American, born and raised in Baltimore, but still very closely connected to my roots. And like my family had farmland in Pakistan, and we grew mangoes. And so everything when we were there in Pakistan was like mango shakes or mango smoothies or mango,
so
like
cool.
everything, mango achar. And it's still my favorite flavor, and I feel like it connects my present to my roots.
Wow.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you, Miss Mango, for being here, for taking the time with us, and for everything that you do. You know, we hope that you continue to be a leader in our communities, and you know, that people get encouraged to do the same thing and get their voices out there. So
thank you, Shamir, Amber, and for us for inviting me to be here today, and keep up the great work with this podcast.
Thank
Excited
you
to see
so
what you
much.
guys do.
thank you so much. For everybody listening, it's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little a stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.